Hello and welcome back. We have learned what is a database, what are the data collection methods, what is Microsoft Access. We have also learned how to create a desktop database based on an Access template, and the database was called Contacts. Finally, we learned the fundamentals of database design. Today, let's learn how to create a database from scratch. Our example will be based on a small computer learning institute. We will learn how to identify the items, construct the tables, create a relation amongst the tables, and create a form for further data entry quickly and easily. So let's start. I'll minimize this first. And here I have a Word document with the name of the Computer Training Institute, the address, phone numbers, and then we have an application form number. That means this institute has a unique application form number for each student. So what do they have as items? They have salutation, which means Mr., Mrs., Miss, Doctor, Professor, first name, middle name, last name, date of birth, house number, and so on. This is what the student fills out when he visits the institute. There is a photograph also here. So this photograph will be attached here. Then the student fills out the course joined, the name of the course fees. Then we have the payment method, which includes payment amount, payment date, payment type. The payment types are cash, check, credit card, net banking, and so on. Also, this institute finds out from their students how did they come to know about them, like word of mouth, flyer in the newspapers, ad in a magazine, or website. Now, in the end, they also calculate the balance payment. That means when the user or when the student joins a course, he has to pay a certain amount of course fees, but he may not pay the complete course fees on joining. He may like to pay that in installments. So he keeps on paying in installments, and at the end of his payment, we keep on calculating the balance payment. That is the amount that is due to the institute. Now, based on those inputs, we have here 4 tables that we have created in Word itself. So we have the student details, course details, payment details, and the questionnaire. Now, let us start Access. We will select blank database because we wish to create the database from scratch. So let's click on this. A new window opens which says blank database, and it has given us a name. So we don't want that name. We will say Computer Training Institute. And we will not save it in the default path here, but we'll click on this to browse for location to put your database. We will go to Database Family Computer Club, and we'll save this database, Computer Training Institute, in this folder. So we'll say OK, and you see the file name has been created in this folder path, and we'll click on Create. So Access does something and comes up with a default table 1. We will right click on this and we'll go to Design View. So Access asks us to save this. So we will say OK, save this as students. That means students table. table name of the table name will be students. We'll say OK, and it brings us to the design area, and here we have ID which is selected, so we'll just write student ID, and the data type is auto number, which Access assigns automatically like 1, 2, 3, 4, and you can see below here in the field properties that this is a long integer and the new values will be incremented. And next to the student ID you see a key here, and here you see this primary key is highlighted. The primary key designates the selected field of fields as the primary key. What does this mean? You know now in between that this student ID will be a unique number and it will make our record in the database a unique record. The next item that we wish to have is salutation. And automatically Access gives us a short text. That means you can write Mr., Mrs. and so on. That means this is a string. We do wish to have it as short text, but we want to give the user a choice. So we will click here and we will say go to lookup wizard. A new window pops up, and what we will do, let me read this first. The wizard creates a lookup field which displays a list of values you can choose from. How do you want your lookup field to get its values? I want the lookup field to get the values from another table or query. So we could create another table or query, but because this is very simple, we will just click on this. I want to type in the values that I want. So we'll click next, and here our column number will be 1 and we will type in the values. For example, Mr. We'll press the down arrow and we'll write here Miss or Mrs. Then we can write here Doctor, and finally Prof for Professor, and we'll say next. Here, what label would you like for a lookup field? So we'll say okay, keep this salutation. And if we wish, we can limit to list. Do you want to limit entries to the choices? That means the user will be able to choose only from these 4. So if you want to do that, you can check this. And here, do you want to store multiple values for this lookup? Of course not. We cannot write for one single person Mr. and Mrs. at the same time. So we will not check this, but there will be cases where you can have multiple values, multiple choices, as you will see very soon. Those are all the answers the wizard needs to create your lookup field. So we'll say finish, and it's done. Now let us go to first name. So first name, short text. First name could be John, Ramesh, and so on. Then we have the last name, also text. So last name would be something like Robinson, Verma, Sharma, and so on. So I'm going to now put in all the fields that I showed you in the Word document. So now I have put in all the fields. So important thing to note is date of birth. So this will not be short text, but we will choose date and time, so that we can get our calendar, the date picker. Mobile phone, short text, email, short text, and so on, till we go to the photograph. Photograph will not be short text, it will be an attachment. There it is. So this table is now completed. You can add more fields according to your requirements. So we will close this now, and Access asks us, do you want to save changes to the design of table students? We will say yes. Now we can double click on this table to see how it looks like. So double click, And there you see, I'm just going to close this window here. So you see you have salutation, and you can choose first name, last name. You can enter these. Okay, I'm going to close this now and go back to the design mode, design view, just to show you that once you have the first name, it appears just like this. But if you want it to appear as two words, you can go to the field properties, and in the caption you can write, for example, first name. And you can do this with any of this data, for example, like last name, mobile phone. I need to change this also now, because it's not a good idea to have spaces in your field names. So while I'm here, I can change the caption also and make it date of birth. So in this manner, you can get the field title or caption like this instead of having it as one word. Not only that, if you say, for example, the first name, the field size is 255. So if you wish to optimize your database and the data that is inside your database, you can set this to, for example, 50. So it takes less space. Similarly, we can do that for the last name. Now you can keep on doing such things for all of your fields. So we'll click on this now to close it. Again, it will ask you whether you wish to save it. We'll say yes. In a similar manner, now I'm going to go to create and create the next table, which was courses, if you remember. So we will right click on this and say design view. It will ask us to save. So we will say courses and OK. Now in this first field, we will write course ID, and this will be an auto number. Then we will have the course name, will be short text, and course fees. Now in the case of the course name, this is short text, fine, but we can create lookup values. So that is quite easy in a similar fashion like we did last time. So we will write here, for example, Excel, VBA, MS Access, C++, and you can write all the courses that the institute has. And we will say next. Again, we get the same options, and we can limit the data to that list so that people cannot write their own values. Finally, we will click finish. We will click on this button here, X, to close it. Access asks us to save it. We'll say yes. So we have two tables now. We go to create and we will create the third table, and this time we will create the table payments. So you see now at this moment we don't have a primary key, so I'm going to say payment ID, and we will select auto number. We will click here to select this whole row and click on the primary key to make this our unique identifier called the primary key. Then we will say here payment amount, and that is of course a number, not a short text, because we will be performing calculations. We can also take currency if you like. I'm taking number because then you can put your own currency, for example dollars or yen or rupees. Then we have payment date, and this is obviously a data type which is date time. Then we have payment type, I'm creating it like this, but if you wish to create another table, you can create another table for payment type and create a relationship with the payments table. So instead of short text, we will click here and we will go to lookup wizard. Okay, and we will type the values, and we will type, for example, cash, check. Then you can write here net banking, credit card, and you can write as many values as you like. We'll go to next. It gives it a name, payment type. You can limit to these values if you like, and you can allow multiple values, but we won't do that, so we'll say finish. Okay, now we'll click on the cross here. Again, we'll save this, and this table we will call payments. So this is our third table, and now we will create the final table, the questionnaire one. So we'll go to create, table design, we'll click here question ID. We want this to be unique, so we'll say auto number. We'll assign it a primary key. We will put a question here that the user can select. So question, short text, and here also we will use the lookup wizard and create a list for the user from which he can select. For example, we can say word of mouth, we can write a flyer, ad in magazine, and then we had finally website. So these are the 4 options. We'll go to next, and we can limit to list. That means we want the user only to select from there, and we will also allow multiple values. So if the student was influenced by word of mouth and he saw our flyer, we want him to allow to put that data into the database. So we'll click finish. We'll close this. Say yes, and our table is questions. Okay. So we have now all the 4 tables. Let us have a look at them. We have students. I'll double click on this. Questions, payments, courses. Now, to create a relationship between the tables, as I showed you in the fundamentals of database design, we need to have foreign keys. Okay, so I'm going to close this now. Go to, for example, courses, right click on it, design view, and we can write here student ID. That means which student is taking which course. Okay, and here, because the student ID is a primary key in the students table, we need to give this the data type number, which is a long integer, so that the data type is the same for the primary key as well as the foreign key. Let me just double click on the students table. If you see here, we have the student ID, which is going to be an auto number, and it is the primary key. This primary key has been now placed in the courses table as a foreign key. We will close this now and save this. Yes. We'll go to payments, and here also you see we need to put the foreign key student ID because we must know which student made the payment. So we'll close this now, right click on the payments table, and in the design view we will add here student ID, and because student ID is a long integer in its original table, we need to have number as the data type, so both the data types match. When you close this, we'll save it. We will not double click this time. We will right click, go to design view straight away, and write here student ID, because we want to know which student told us what when he was filling out the form. So we will take this as number again, because this is a foreign key in this table, and in the students table it is the primary key. We'll close this, and when Access asks us to save it, we'll say yes. So now we have completed the creation of the table, and we have sort of created also a relationship. But to complete that relationship, we will have to go to Database Tools, Relationships, and on the right you see here these tables. So we will double click on each of these tables to bring them into our relationship area. So here we have them, and let me bring the students table right in the center, and we'll keep these three tables like this. I'm just clicking and dragging. We can even make this so that we can see everything. We can see all the fields, and I can place the payments table here. Okay, so now we need to link these four tables with each other. So the student ID will be linked to this ID. So click and drag to student ID, and a new window called Edit Relationships pops up, and it says that from the students table I'm taking the student's ID, and from the courses table I have the student's ID, which is the foreign key, and this is going to be a one-to-many relationship. That means one student can take many courses. I will say enforce integrity. You will learn this later also, why this is to be done. When we delete the data, we want all the relevant data to be deleted or updated, and similarly for the delete, we'll say create. And the one-to-many relationship has been created. Similarly, we will create a relationship between the student ID, the primary key here, and the foreign key in the payments. The student's ID from the students table and the payments table, we get the student ID. It's a one-to-many relationship. We'll enforce referential integrity and the cascade update related fields, cascade delete related fields. What does this mean? When we update some data, we want all the fields to be updated. When we delete something, we want all the related data, all the related records to be deleted. And we'll click on create. So a one-to-many relationship has been created. Similarly for students and the questions, create. Okay, so our relationships have been created. If you feel that you have not understood this, please read the post on fundamentals of database design and you will understand it. The fundamental thought here is that each of these tables has its own items. To create the relation, we place, for example, the student ID into the other tables so that we can get data from all the four tables if we wish to do so, due to the relation between the tables. Okay, so I'm going to close this now, and Access is going to ask me whether you want to save it. We will say yes. So we save it. Now let's go to the students table, double click on it, and let's fill out some data. Okay, so I'm going to fill out some data like this: Mr. John Hopkins, date of birth, February 1990. Mobile phone, so we'll write some mobile phone. Email, johnh@gmail.com. House number W3, locality Greater Kailash 2, city New Delhi, pin code 110048, and here I need to add a picture. So I'll just double click on this and I get this attachment. So I'll say add. I'll go to my folder where I have some pictures, mail pictures. So I'll select this one, for example, mail 1, open, and say OK. So it has been added. Now we'll go to the next one, and did you notice Access has assigned the value 1 to this, so this becomes a unique record. We'll select Miss Pooja Bedi. So we'll give her a date of birth. Let's say April 8th, 1995. Phone number. That's the email address. So Greater Kailash 1, New Delhi, pin code, and we also want a photograph, so we'll double click on this, add. We'll go to an area or folder where we have pictures which we can choose. So we'll choose this one, open, and OK. So the picture has been added. I'm going to close this now, and Access will automatically save the file. For the rest of the data entry, I don't want to do it using the tables. I want to do it using the form. So I'll click on Students, go to Create, I'll go to the Form Wizard. You'll see in a bit how this works. So if I click on this arrow, student ID will go there. And if I click on this, it will come back. But if I click on this, all the fields will go to the right hand side. So that's what I want to do. I'll go to Next. And it says, what layout would you like in your form? So columnar is fine. Next. What title do you want for your form? So we'll say, okay, this is fine, but we'll add FRM for form students. And we'll open the form to view when we finish this. So we'll click on this. And as you see, this form has been displayed. And if you wish, you can see the second one here. This is the second one. And if you click Next, you can add more data. But we don't only want to add just this data, we also want to add the courses that the student will take, the payments he makes, and the questions he answers. Okay, we'll close this now. We'll right click on Form Students. We'll go to Design View. And in this Design View, we will go here to the bottom and increase the size of the form. You can see here. Okay. And we will take the courses table here, click on it and drag it to bring it here onto our form. and it says, would you like to define which fields link your main form to this subform yourself or choose from the list below? So we will do what Access is telling us, choose from a list. So show courses for each record students using student ID. So we'll go to next and we'll call this courses subform, finish. So this has been added here. I'll just move this a little bit below like this. We'll scroll down. I'll make this a little bit bigger to get the second subform here. So the second subform will be payments. Click and drag and I'll place it here, and again the same thing, we'll say next and finish. So we have the second subform here with all the details. I'm going to expand the form again. I'll just bring this a little bit up here. So you see I'm clicking the gray area and dragging. So let me drag this a little bit. Just creating space for the third subform. And I expanded the form further. So I'll click on questions and bring it here. Click next and finish. Okay. Now let me just make this a little bigger. And you can see here, if I have a look at this, I'll just close this now. Yes, we'll save it. And now I'll double click on the form students. You can see what's going on here. So we have now here course name which we can enter. The course fees also. The payments can be entered. Fine, no problems. But you see in the question ID, we only have the ID and the student ID. But where are the questions? So we don't have those. So I'm going to close this now. And I'm going to right click on form students. And in the design view again, I will make a few changes to the questionnaire here, question form. So I've selected this now. I'm going to make it a little bigger. And you see here on the top it says add existing field. So I'll click on this and I get my question table here, and I don't have the question value here. So I'm going to click on this and take it inside my form here, and I'll click on this gray box to pull this out, and then I'll pull this out a little bit, make this a little bit bigger. Okay, and I'm going to close this and save this. So this is saved. Now I will double click on form students, and now you see I have all this data but I hadn't filled up this. So what course did the student take? So we can click here and we can say Excel VBA, and course fees we know. So let's say 5990 if you remember it, but we can see it later on. So we go down, let's say the student makes a payment of 2000 units. Payment date, we have here a date picker. So we'll select, for example, 4th June 2020, and payment type, let's say check. Okay, we go down, scroll down, and what did the student answer? Okay, by word of mouth. Okay, now we'll go down, scroll down, and we'll go to the second record. So we are in the second record, and as you saw, we had only filled up this data here with the photograph. Now we need to fill this also. So we'll say Excel VBA, let's say, and the course fees is 5990. The counselor would know it, and we get the student ID also. We scroll down. So the payment amount, let's say the student makes a payment of 2000 again, the second student. The payment date we will take from the date picker, 4th June, Payment type, let us say net banking. Okay, so we scroll down, and how did the student get to know about us? So we click here and we say flyer in the newspaper. Okay, and then we can go further, and immediately our form is set to new. So we can select here, for example, and say doctor. We'll put a name, Hari Gosain, date of birth. So we get a date picker tool here. So we can take, for example, January, in this case 2nd January and 1995. So we can write the mobile phone, email, house number, so in this manner I'm filling up the data in a form which is much more convenient than doing it in the data sheet view in the table. So here the course name I will select, for example, Excel VBA. Course fees again 5990, that doesn't change, and the student makes a payment of 29990, and the payment date, for example, is 4th June. Payment type, let's say cash. We go down, and how did he get to know about us? So let's say website, and okay. So we have finished this. If we press the tab key, again we get a new student ID to be entered. Of course, Access gives us the student ID. The rest we enter. Now, what did I forget here? If you notice, in the third one, I forgot something. So let's have a look. I forgot the photograph. So let me click on this. So here is the attachment. I'll click on this. I'll add a photograph. This is doctor, so I need, let's say, a male photo. So let me take this one, male 3, open, okay, and the picture is added. Okay, we can now close this form, and let's go to our students table and double click on this. So you see the new entry has been made, and you can see the photograph is also there. Okay, let's have a look at the courses. So you see all the 3 students have taken these courses: Excel VBA, and let's go to payments. And you see here the payments made, the type of payments, the date, and which student made that. And in this manner, we have created our tables, created a relationship between them by using the database tools, and then we have created a form, students form, with 3 subforms that allow us to fill the courses taken by the student, the payments made, and the questions, how they got to know about us. In the next video, we will learn how to query data and how to create reports. I hope you found this video interesting and useful. Thanks for watching.